This morning we are going to have a symposium entitled The Theosophical Society as a Regenerating Brotherhood. And the speakers for this morning are Ricardo Lindemann, this very handsome gentleman on my left, and he is a civil engineer. He has a licentiate in philosophy. He's a bishop of the Liberal Catholic Church, president of the Council of Religious Education in the Federal District of Brazil, president of the Syndicate of Astrologers of the Federal District of Brazil, former General Secretary of the Theosophical Society. And I invite him to give his rendition of this subject.
Good morning. My special homage to Mrs. Radha Bournier, our president, and gratitude, as well as to Vice President Linda Oliveira and Antonio Girardi, which is the president of our Italian Fratellanza. I like it so much. This word is it is always a mystery that in some way the beginning contains the end, at least potentially, as the seed contains potentially in itself the whole tree. So, if the beginning was the one, we are always looking for the one, and the one is the very end of all evolution. Even now, the perception of unity is the essence of spirituality. Obviously, the cosmos could not originate order from the chaotic mass of powder resulting from a Big Bang without the existence of a directive intelligence or universal mind, also known as the great architect, as Madame Blavatsky, but with other words, as one of the aims of the secret doctrines in its preface, to show that nature is not a fortuitous concurrence of atoms. Similarly, one of the greatest scientists, Dr. Albert Einstein, also said, "I believe in God who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of the universe. I believe that intelligence is manifested throughout all nature. The basis of scientific work is the conviction that the world is an ordered and comprehensible entity and not a thing of chance." The Mahatmas who inspired the beginning of the Theosophical Society represent, so to speak, its special potentiality, and they have always the perception of that ultimate unity, as it is mentioned in their letters. I quote, "Having passed that stage of philosophy which maintains that all fundamental truths have sprung from a blind impulse, the adept sees and feels and lives in the very source of all fundamental truth, the universal essence of nature, Shiva, the creator, the destroyer, and the regenerator." They also give the keynote of the Theosophical Society from its very beginning, saying, "The chiefs want a brotherhood of humanity, a real universal fraternity started, an institution which would make itself known throughout the world and arrest the attention of the highest minds. the existence of perfect men or Mahatmas, as well as their great brotherhood, is a logical conclusion if one accepts or understands the laws of reincarnation, karma, and evolution, and it's beautifully expressed in the traditional words, there is a spiritual dynasty whose throne is never vacant, whose splendor never fails. Its members form a golden chain whose links can never be torn asunder, for they draw back the world to God from whom it came. Therefore, this connection of the Theosophical Society with the Mahatmas from its very beginning and their keynote of brotherhood give a special character to it, as it is so well expressed by Dr. Taimni as a very important function of the Theosophical Society. That is, to serve as direct agency in the work of the elder brethren for the reclamation and regeneration of the world. This fact of the vital connection of the society with those who are the real guides of humanity lends a peculiar dignity to our work, bordering almost on sacredness, and provides the majority of its active members with that inspiration and enthusiasm which are so necessary in a work of this kind. It enables them to stand firm and remain unaffected by the periodical crises which come in the society and sometimes shake it to its very foundations. They feel on such occasions that their loyalty to the great ones and the universal principles of which they are the embodiments transcends any differences that they may happen to arise with regard to the methods of work, and therefore, whatever happens, they should not desert the great cause which the society represents. All this seems to indicate that the periodical crises which come in the Theosophical Society mentioned above are a kind of a collective probation, naturally derived from its connection to the Mahatmas. As they said, no one comes in contact with us, no one shows a desire to know more of us, but has to submit to being tested and put by us on probation, with the sole object of drawing out the whole inner nature of the chela or disciple, most of the nooks and corners of which would remain dark and concealed forever, were not an opportunity afforded to test each of these corners in turn. Similarly, as a homeopathic remedy to first create worse symptoms before the elimination exoneration process has time to produce the better results for healing, the period of probation is a part of the occult process of education that seems to create difficult situations for the disciple, but they really are mainly of a psychological nature, giving him an opportunity for an inner regeneration. Miss Clara Court also comments that periodical crises in the Theosophical Society are inevitable, and although confusing and sometimes devastating for some members, they are not upsetting when their nature and the causes which produce them are understood. They occur at fairly regular intervals and sometimes are precipitated or brought on by the masters of the wisdom to produce some desired or ultimate end they have in view. Like fever crisis in a physical body, they expel poisonous matter which have been collecting for some time and which otherwise would have clogged and hindered the body activity. The Mahatma M wrote a message about the crisis in 1907 as follows: let those who believe in our existence and that we are behind the theosophical movement, also that we shall continue to employ it as an agency for the upliftment of mankind, know that we are sometimes forced to employ imperfect instruments because of the lack of the perfect ones for our work. Therefore, cease for such turmoil and strife, and for causing such disturbance in the unity of brotherhood, and thus weakening its strength. But instead, work together in harmony to fit yourselves to be useful instruments to aid us instead of impeding our work. We who are behind the theosophical movement are powerless sometimes to prevent the checks and disturbances that must unavoidably arise because of the karma of the individual members. But you can add as much by refusing to take part in such disturbances and by living through the highest possible ideals of theosophy. Should any event bring forth seeming injustice, have faith in the law that never fails to adjust matters. Cease rushing headlong into strife or taking part in dissensions. Hold together in brotherly love, since you are part of the greatest universal self. Are you not striving against yourselves? Are not your brother's sins your own? Peace, trust in us. Unquote. Even in the whole universe, all the beginning of the manifestation of the many from the one, brotherhood is the natural keynote of relation among the fragments of the one, and this was to be particularly true in the human dimension of relationships. Similarly, it is even attributed to the Sufi tradition that poetical explanation that love is the meaning of life, because in the beginning God was one and alone. So he divided himself in order to make it possible that his fragments could love one another, thereby discovering they are part of the whole. In fact, the idea of sacrifice of the one in the beginning of the universe to make it possible for the manifestation of the many seem to appear almost in every religion, and Dr. Besson gave to it such an importance that she considered sacrifice as one of the universal laws, saying, "The study of the law of sacrifice follows naturally on the study of the law of karma. The sacrifice of the Logos lay in his voluntarily circumscribing his infinite life in order that he might manifest. Diversity could not arise in the partless Brahman, save for this voluntary sacrifice of the deity, taking on himself form in order to emanate myriad forms, each devoured with a spark of his life, and therefore with the power of evolving into his image. The primal sacrifice or emanation that causes the birth of beings is named action or karma. Brotherhood, harmonious relationship, cooperation, love, and interdependence of all beings in life are directly connected with the law of sacrifice and the perception of any meaning in life or the comprehension of pain in the evolution of forms and joy in the evolution of life are almost impossible without the understanding of sacrifice as a law. And Dr. Besan wisely adds, the law of sacrifice being thus the law of life evolution in the universe, we find every step in the ladder is accomplished by sacrifice. The life putting itself out to take birth in a higher form, while the form that contained it perishes. Those who look only at the perishing forms see nature as a vast charnel house, while those who see the deathless soul escaping to take a new and higher form hear ever the joyous song of birth from the upward springing life. It has indeed profounder and more mystic aspects than any touched here, but this way will unveil themselves without words to the patient and loving heart whose life is all a sacrificial offering. There is a historical example of how the voluntary sacrifice of individualisms can lead to peace, unity, and brotherly relations of nations, which is the creation of the European Union. During the conjunction of Uranus and Neptune, the conquest of peace in East Europe came to reality on the 1st of November 1993. A reality conquered voluntarily or by peaceful ways never seen before in European history, ending centuries of wars. That showed a possible beginning for the Aquarius age, the sign of brotherhood, which ruler is Uranus, ending the age of Pisces, which ruler is Neptune. By the way, Pluto is considered the planet of regeneration in astrology, and the last time that Pluto came to the sign of Aquarius brought with him the French Revolution. The next time, from 2023 to 2044, would have to bring nothing smaller than the creation of a federation of nations, as Bishop Leadbeater had foreseen, as he foresaw 80 years before the creation of the European Union, which is now a wonderfully political realization of unification, an example to be shown to the world of how to cease all wars and give way for a living brotherhood's victory. Fratellanza. Huh? Indeed, to really understand the law of sacrifice and interdependence, we must live in brotherhood, which means life of love and service, developing self-knowledge through relationship, as Mr. J. Krishnamurti considers. In daily life, this means to choose things. First, that you shall be careful to do no hurt to any living thing. And second, that you shall always be watching for an opportunity to help. Because you are discovering yourself in relationship with another from moment to moment, relationship has a completely different meaning. Relationship, then, is a revelation, a constant process of self-discovery, of oneself, and from this self-discovery, action takes place. So self-knowledge can come only through relationship, not through isolation. Because we do not know how to love one, our love for humanity is fictitious. When you love, there is neither one nor many. There is only love. It is only when there is love that all our problems can be solved, and then we shall know its bliss and its happiness. Then brotherhood and love can reveal their regenerative power through the mirror of relationship. Indeed, regeneration is a mysterious power of consciousness to come back to the real beginning of all things, tuning its real being or keynote, which is always new because it is timeless. Like a divine seed with its inner potentiality or natural motivation, it is able to creatively change potentiality into actuality, inertia into action, developing and revealing the inner nature of the things. So the keynote of the Theosophical Society from its very beginning is brotherhood. Our task is only to preserve with vigilant care its inner seed or brotherly nature, which expresses itself in service and love, and it will flower naturally according to its place in the divine plane with its intrinsic regenerative potentiality, which is that spiritual perception of unity. Thank you for your attention.